All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. It looks like a few folks are starting to jump in. We'll give a few folks a few minutes before kind of diving into the presentation, but we can start and kick it off, do some introductions on who is talking with you all today, and kind of the purpose of the webinar. So my name's Ted Cullinane. I'm a sales director here at Flowcode, been at the company for a little over a year now. Focusing on travel hospitality as one of the target verticals. So Sarah, I'll kick it over to you and you can introduce yourself.
Thanks, Ted. I'm happy to be here. I am Sarah T. I am the co-founder and CEO of Buku, and we provide, and you'll see here in the webinar, but we utilize Flowcode exclusively actually as our QR code partner, and we utilize Flowcodes for our hospitality technology solutions.
Awesome. So what I'm going to do is just share my screen and we'll have just a very conversational, deck, few slides that we'll be able to go through here, talk through a little bit more about how Sarah has been using Flowcode, some of her, goals and use cases, as well as, really how to make marketers within the travel hospitality industry better experts, on how to use, QR technology. Computers being a little laggy here, but I think we can get started. So you met us in our respective roles at our companies. From an agenda standpoint, we'll talk about some of these different topics, what Buku and Flowcode are doing, as well as just some more information about our respective companies, just so you have an idea of what we're doing. Some ideas of like what's beyond, the QR code. People are very familiar with the QR code being, that black and white square that you can redirect someone from an offline experience to, more of like a trackable URL based link. But what we're seeing and what we've developed at Flowcode, adding some additional features and customization capabilities that allow marketers to really get more out of the tool. Some ideas about QR consolidation. And we'll talk through specifically about how Buku is using Flowcode. We have some questions we'll ask Sarah as well, and then hopefully have some time at the end for Q&A. So please write down your questions. We're excited to hopefully answer them by the end of the call. So real quick, I'll turn it over to Sarah if you want to give 30, 90-second overview of Buku and your company.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks. So we are Buku. Some of you may know us formally as UTIP. And what we are dedicated to doing in the hospitality industry is empowering the industry to be able to earn more and do more by utilizing our solutions. So specifically what we're solving for is our society going cashless and having a digital way of leaving discretionary tips. So think about those scenarios where you would have used cash for, say, a valet parking attendant or a housekeeper or a bellman, bell services attendant. Those types of roles where you don't have an opportunity to add the tip to like a credit card check, where you would typically have used like, a couple ones or some cash for, and now you don't. So that's where we come in and can help enterprises like the ones you see on the screen here, digitize that process. And the way we utilize Flowcode is that Flowcode is an entry point to get into the Buku tipping screens here that you can see.
Awesome. And I'll transition and give a quick overview of Flowcode. So Sarah is a great customer, and and her company is really leveraging all the different tools that we have on this screen and how and where we're helping different brands. So if you think about our suite of products, our goal as a company is to help brands connect directly with their target customers or fans of their particular brand through our different products, with whether it's the Flowcode that you see on the top left, the custom designed QR code, our product flow page, which is a very customizable mobile microsite where you can, drag, drop different links, feature different content, and really build these little microsites out to your liking. Then being able to feature, whether it's the flow code across all of your different offline touch points that may be on premise, could be on TV screens when people check into the room, could be on elevator clings, really all those different touch points that you have with customers on premise, as well as being able to use the flow page as a potential scan destination for that particular user. So, in Sarah's case, they're scanning to a Buku environment where people can, tip and engage with the Buku platform that Sarah and her team has built. We have the flow page product as an optional solution where people can send that scan traffic that occurs from the flow code, to a potential flow page, depending. So we give our customers and creators the capabilities to do really however they want to use the platform. And underneath it all, we have our product Flowlytics, which is really the data and analytics that you have, at your fingertips to be able to understand, where people are scanning, how frequently they're scanning, what they're scanning, really just as a proxy for, what engagement looks like across your particular your footprint or lines of hotels and businesses. Again, really quick, just being able to do all those different things on a very easy to use platform to be able to understand all these different activations, from CRM collection to contactless payments to, I mentioned the TV check-in screen. Anytime that you're talking with a customer or engaging with a customer on premise, Flowcode is a good proxy for being able to understand what that engagement looks like, and then being able to leverage, a platform like Buku to understand more down funnel from a commerce tipping standpoint in the points that Sarah had laid out. So I want to quickly pause and show, and I'll turn it back to Sarah if you want to give some more information just about how these are examples of flow codes that Buku is using. But Sarah, I'll turn it over to you if you want to give some background on this slide here.
Sure, absolutely. So like I mentioned, we're partners with Flowcode exclusively, and we love utilizing the Flowcode technology for multiple reasons. But as you can see here, as opposed to your traditional black and white QR codes, Flowcode has these are the Flowcode designers that we leverage in making some of these different codes, is that they're very visually more appealing than your traditional black and white QR code. There's something that our customers like to be able to both print, to display on a print setting, like what you're seeing here with like table tents and cards or mirror clings, but also digitally. The Flowcode for TVs have digitally optimized codes that can have call to actions, and that can be prominently displayed on digital displays, TVs, tablets, things like that. So we really like the flow codes to use those with our customers from a design standpoint. But even beyond that, we are a cashless tipping solution, right? So our customers are providing this, we're B2B2C, our customers are providing Buku's solution as a convenience to their hotel guests or hospitality guests and stuff, as a way to be able to leave a cashless tip. Instead of having to go and hunt down an ATM or feel bad that they don't have enough cash or not be able to get, the amount broken, all those things. This is just a very convenient way for hospitality guests to be able to leave a cashless tip. So what I was mentioning is beyond the design, looking better than your, regular black and white QR codes, square QR codes, is the security behind it too, because since we are processing a payment, our customers and the customers of our customers are very concerned, about potentially any kind of phishing schemes or any kind of anything that could potentially hack them or scanning. Everyone's so used to, especially post-COVID, of scanning a QR code to see a restaurant menu or to go to a website or to do something like that. But actually going from the offline world to the online world and doing a transaction like a cashless tip transaction, payment transaction, they want to know that this is a secure, this is going to be a secure transaction. This is safe to do that, right? So maybe Ted, you can explain a little bit better on that security piece behind Flowcode's platform.
Certainly. No, and you're exactly right with being able to feature a branded code that offers, that brand trust of, hi, this we're at this Hilton, we're at this Marriott that's specific to that location that, wants to have that respective branding incorporated. So, yes, this is the property I'm staying at, and this is why I'm going to, potentially tip through it or scan to see more information or whatever the end destination is for that consumer. So yeah, I can talk a little bit about the privacy component and why we take it extremely seriously here at Flowcode. To Sarah's point, there are many black and white QR codes that exist in market. Historically, QR was really used for manufacturing, and it was really used from a B2B standpoint to understand, package in, package out to track inventory. Really, since then, though, we've seen QR really take off, which has been fantastic. But I think it's worth noting, the amount of phishing schemes that could happen with, potentially unbranded QR codes. So if you look at this code here, because it's, the biggest, most prominent one, you can see a few different things. You can see the privacy.flowcode.com smile that we have on every single code that we create. Essentially, this is indicating that we are what's called GDPR and CCPA compliant. If you look at the digital marketing regulations that exist globally, GDPR was really founded within the European Union. CCPA is the California Consumer Protection Act. That's essentially, very similar to what legislation is with GDPR, essentially indicating that we're not collecting any sort of personal identifiable information on that user at the point of scan. So this is validating this code is safe. Your information's not getting, collected as Ted Cullinane scanning the flow code. It's just an iOS device scanning the flow code. So there's a level of privacy there. The other is, and it doesn't have it on this code, which is a feature within the platform. You can toggle the ability on or off to have the flow code eye. You can kind of see it here underneath the bottom eye here where it says flow code, just as another branded solution. We want to be known as the most brand safe, privacy safe QR solution in market, as well as having all the other features within our platform at our disposal that we've briefly talked about thus far. So those are the different advantages that we have when it comes to data privacy and security. But we're also the only circular QR provider that gives us another advantage in market where people see this and say that's a flow code versus a QR code.
Yeah, absolutely. They're harder to falsify too, right? These visually appealing flow codes are harder to falsify than your traditional square black and white QR codes. Early on, we don't really get this question as much anymore, but early on, I would say we were getting questions like, well, what's preventing an employee from just swapping out that code with like their Venmo or their Cash App code or something like that? Well, this is really a big piece of being able to help control and manage the QR codes that you have on property or on in your facilities and stuff.
Yeah, why don't we let's piggyback on that question, Sarah. I think the QR code management is something worth jumping in on, because you've been great users of the platform. You have many different properties using the platform. Can you talk about like organizationally how you're using the tool to use and work with all the different properties, hotel groups that you have here, and some of the different advantages that the platform has opened up for you to allow you to do that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So QR codes, as you mentioned earlier, it's great like that. There's has really shifted in the use case and what people will have known to use it for. But it's kind of good and bad. Like good in the sense that everybody knows how to scan a QR code, whether you're 16 or 60 years old, you know how to pull out your phone and scan a QR code. So the adoption of this is great. The bad part is that QR codes can have kind of a bad rap in the sense of like, how many times have you been to places where it's like QR code overload? You have a QR code for this menu and a QR code for this channel guide and a QR code for this. And so it can be kind of like, from a visual standpoint, a lot of our hospitality customers, they want to be on brand. They want to get rid of paper collateral, but they also want it to look good. So with Flowcode, we've really been able to leverage like Flow Page, for example, to have QR codes consolidated, where while they can also access the digital tipping piece, they could also maybe look at the restaurant menus, maybe tip the band, or all those different options under just one QR code.
Yep. Yeah, you talked about it when we spoke last week, the idea of QR consolidation. So making sure that it's not overload for potential visitors coming in and out of the property, as well as then being able to use the flow page product to kind of aggregate those links and redirects, so that this is the code, and then being able to track now at the link level based on what people are engaging with. But for some folks, we find, hey, if I'm Marriott, or I'm Hilton, or I'm IHG, and I want to have an understanding of all my codes, you'd have the ability to do that, whether it's creating individualized codes based on property, individualized codes based on menu, elevator clings, check-in desk, all the different touch points that you have with your customers. We're trying to give those folks the ability to track and understand that performance, no matter the code.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And so just kind of the adverse of like the QR code consolidation of having multiple things available under one code. On the opposite side, we have several customers that utilize our cashless tipping solution for housekeeping tips. And the way that they disperse of those tips is that they provide, just like the way cash was, provide those tips to the housekeeping staff members that cleaned that room, that serviced that room, right? So then how do you tie all that back? So oftentimes what we'll do is we have specific flow codes for specific rooms or suite. And stuff like that. Sometimes we'll put like a human readable code, like what you see there on the bottom left there with the Hilton mirror cling. There's a human readable code, like a ring around it that has the room number. Sometimes we'll just have something very simple, even outside of the code. Different things like that. But that lends to the analytics, the Flowlytics of being able to see, okay, which rooms have been tipped the most or the least, which individuals have been tipped the most and least, because our solution really promotes reward and recognition, right? Of being able to reward employees for good service, by the guests being able to have a simple and easy way to tip, and also recognize these employees as well, because not only from the monetary standpoint, but in our solution, there's also a space to leave comments or a remark and stuff that can be shared with those employees as well. So all those different things can lend to the analytics that we look at. Okay, why is it that Sally is consistently knocking it out of the park, getting crazy, awesome tips? Oh, she does towel animals, or whatever the case is, so that she can share some of her best practices and stuff with her colleagues on things of tips of how to generate more tips, things like that. So yeah, the analytics are a big benefit to the use case of flow codes.
Yeah, and you hit it, and I think the analytics really become what you want to make them. I mean, if you're using one code and it's one code only to track engagement, it's going to be very limited in what you're able to see beyond, what you're seeing on the screen, whether it's the location of the code, where it was scanned, the day of the week, the hour of the day. We can provide all that information, but when it really starts to get more and more powerful for our partners is when there are more codes used. So whether you're using them on premise to engage with customers and visitors, like we've been discussing, and or when you're running marketing and media efforts to try and bring people to your property. So if it's using out of home ads, if it's using mailers, if it's using TV media to promote different specials that you're hosting, flow codes can be a way for you to understand both off-premise and on-premise activity. And I think the best users we have, Buku being one of them, is those that are really leaning into the solution and taking it for what you can get from all the solutions that live within the platform. But Sarah, I don't know if you want to have anything else to add. We have a few questions that have come through. I don't know if it makes sense to stop and answer those. But I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to touch on before moving forward.
One more thing, as I would say, is that we like to do, or we would like to use as part of the Flowlytics here too, is the time, or rather, when a guest scanned the QR code, the flow code, and then when the actions happen. So for example, we're in the cashless tipping space. So if a guest scanned the flow code, but they did not follow through with the tip transaction? Could there be some, reasons in between there? Maybe they were turned off by the fee, like a transaction fee, or, vice versa and stuff like that. Maybe there was too many things on the screen that, that were burdensome for the guests, like asking them too many questions or drop down boxes or things like that. There's so many things that we can tell just from the timing of when, the scan activity happened or the frequency of that scan.
Yep, that's a good point. So why don't we have 4 questions that have come through, and these are great questions. I think you should be able to see them, Sarah, but for the first one is there a preference between setting up QR codes to rooms or individuals? I'll give my POV, and then Sarah, if you want to give your background, does that work?
Sure.
Cool. So we've seen both on the Flowcode side. So if you think about the ability to potentially create an individual code for each user when they walk into a property through, whether it's using the key card that we could potentially, dynamically print individual QR codes on every single key card that people can activate, to just having, one code that you want to use at that particular property, we can get as customized as you'd like. Historically, I've probably seen that people use codes at the room or property level, though, as opposed to the user. Just knowing that user is coming in and then they're coming out, and that you might not see them for another, few months, few weeks, whatever that might be. But it really just comes down to what your goals are for how you want to track. But I would say the QR codes that are at the room level or on property level are going to be, omnipotent, and be able to then see what engagement looks like, whether that individual is there or not. But Sarah, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that in the preferences for housekeeping anyway, has been by and large setting up the QR codes to the rooms, specific to the rooms rather than the individuals, for a lot of different reasons. Turnover, you may have hotels where they have leased labor, contract labor. And so, there's a lot of changes and stuff that would need to happen if you had a QR code. And then also just think about the business operations. With COVID, a lot of the larger brands, they stopped doing daily housekeeping service, right? So they do it upon request. So how does that change the dynamic of who goes in and out of the rooms and when, and where the QR codes are tied to? Whereas if you have it specific to the location, the room, right, then you can go back and tie who was in that room, who serviced that room, whether they were an employee or a contractor and stuff like that. It's just much more manageable in our experience.
Yeah, almost like the rooms are going to stay fixed, whereas the consumers will come and go, and it's hard to, get that data on that user after they've left. But Sarah, this question's for Buku. How do employees receive the tip amount / payment from the guest?
Sure, absolutely. So there's a couple of different ways that the tips can then be dispersed to the employees. One of the ways is that Buku can have the tips that are collected from the guest deposited to the business, the hotel, for example, kind of just like a point of sale system, depositing the, basically the total amounts that were received from that credit card transaction to the business, that kind of the same flow there. And then the business would then distribute those tips to their employees via their payroll procedures, right? So that's one way of doing it. The frequency of that would really be dependent on the employer, though, of how often they, push out their paychecks and stuff like that. Another way, and this is becoming more and more the most popular way, is being able to have that instant gratification. So being able to have those tips pushed to the employees in as real time as possible. And so we can do that by our partnership with Visa in connecting the employees directly, or having the employees, whether they're contract labor, lease labor, or full-time employees, they would enroll directly with us and connect the banking information where they want the tips to flow to. But there's stuff that has to happen in between that too. And that's really where our platform, Buku, comes into play, because it's, we want to emulate cash as much as possible. And when it was cash, it was okay. A guest handing a $5 bill to a bellman, and the bellman taking that $5 bill, putting it in his pocket and going home with it, right? Or a $20 bill being left on the bedside table for the housekeeper, and then the housekeeper picking that up. And so that instant gratification, that piece of not having the business really to be involved in doing anything. We wanted to emulate that as much as possible. So part of our services is that we handle the reconciliation and calculation of those tips on the back end. So knowing who gets what. Is there a split? Is it like, a 20% split goes to these folks, and then the other, all that stuff is being handled on the back end by us, so that then the disbursement, whether it's going through payroll or going directly to the employee, is as accurate and as fast as possible.
That's awesome. Next question. This is specific to Flowcode. So how do you manage multiple clients? Do they have access to, actually, I think this could be for Buku too. How do you manage multiple clients? Do they have access to Flowcode and analytics directly, or is this done through Flow pages? So I think, Sarah, if you want to talk through how you're working on the Flowcode platform, and I can add any color if they were to come directly to Flowcode.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, something cool about Flowcode and Buku is we're almost the same age. We're kind of, been going through this journey together and really building out these awesome use cases with our customers together. So we're both and we have enterprise level solutions, but as part of that, and being B2B to C, is having the tools in a way where they can be self-service, but also with all the customizations and, the things that I kind of alluded to before with the back end piece. So right now, as it stands, a lot of the customizations or management of the different flow codes and stuff are done on the Buku side. But like I mentioned, even just in the past 2 years that we've been in existence, and with Flowcode as well, is the things that we've added on to our platform to make it more, eventually to be more self-service or more multi-tenant.
Yep. Yeah, and on the Flowcode side, so we work with many different size businesses, whether it's a individual, small bed and breakfast, to some of the largest conglomerate, hotel chains that exist. So we can work in a variety of capacities there. So if you wanted to come to Flowcode and sign up for any of our respective plans, you could do so and have that access for your respective property, and then potentially working with Sarah and the Buku team to be able to link, that Buku transaction redirect from the Flowcode. So capable of handling in either direction there. Sarah, this next question's for you. What is the transaction fee for each tip?
It actually varies. It's not just a straight percentage for us. And then the other thing too about these transaction fees, because think of it as like a convenience fee, like when you go to an ATM and there's a fee that's charged for you to make that transaction, right? So it's similar to that, but not as high as that. And it's hard to actually, explain on this call, because different as cashless tipping is becoming more and more popular. The different brands have adopted different types of setups. Like, for example, with Hilton, they do not pass the transaction fee on to the guest, right? So a $5 tip to a guest is a $5 tip to the guest. Transaction fees then being handled on the back end, which then is a little bit different than, say our customers that are passing on that transaction fee to their guests as a convenience or a transaction fee. So I will say that it does not, for us anyway, does not go above 10%. It's below 10%, but it is on a scale.
Awesome.
Happy, if you ever ask that question, I'm not sure what brands or what company you're with, but happy to go into that more if you'd like. Feel free to contact us afterwards.
Awesome. Next question. Are there any challenges implementing Flowcode TV into already existing TV solutions at hotels? I'll take this one. So we have a number of different ways that our partners are using Flowcode on TV. I'd say the biggest use case that we've seen to date has been through placing codes and using some of our different templates that you can see, here at the bottom, that people will use for their commercials, and then be able to feature, a flow code at the bottom right for people to engage. That historically has been used for, 15, 30 second, 60-second TV spots. You may have seen some of our commercials with those codes. But on the actual property direct side, I'm not super keen into like each of the different ways that the television backend system is set up, but it's super easy to just go into the Flowcode platform, download the code as a PNG, JPEG, SVG file, and then you're able to place it, wherever, how you want within that TV environment. So number of different ways to do it, but I'd say the quickest and easy is just taking the code, downloading it, and then working with the respective on-premise tech dev team to make sure that it can get featured right on that television environment. This next one, can users generate their own QR codes? On the Flowcode side, if they're set up as a partner, yes, we give partners the ability to come in, sign up for Flowcodes, based on the plan that you have, give you a certain number of codes. So you can come in, it's a very self-service tool to build Flowcodes and flow pages. But on Sarah, your side, it sounds like it's more of a managed service that you're providing the partners that you're working with.
Correct. Yes. But
Yep.
Totally flexible as well, right? So for example, we have a customer that comes to us and say, oh, we're already an enterprise flow code customer. We're already using flow codes for our restaurants and our spa and all this stuff. And now we want to be able to add the ability to for cashless tipping through Buku, so we can totally work with them because maybe their marketing team already wants to manage the flow codes and have that part of their process. So then, like you said, we can just provide our backend links for Buku on those.
Yep. And then last question, and we're just right at time, but if you have any other questions, we're happy to go over a few minutes and answer anything. But this is the last one we have in the queue. Our management team is concerned about the new IRS $600 reporting rule. How do employees get reporting?
Yes, so this is another one where we would work with the customer. We always say first and foremost, to work with the customers, whether it's the brand or the management company or the individual property, on their tax rules and regulations that they need to abide by, whether it's a regional, state thing, or even by department. Taxes can be like can be complicated, but also can be like very specific to roles. Like, for example, we have customers in Las Vegas and in the gaming world where they have tip compliance rules for specific roles, or a tip eligible employee versus a non-tip eligible employee may have different rules and stuff there. So always consult with your tax and treasury teams first. The other thing is that from a service provider standpoint, we can help with this in 3 different ways. So if the customer were to go the payroll route, that's very straightforward, because if it's going to be pushed onto the paycheck of the employees, the tax and withholding and stuff would be handled there anyway. The other ways is if the tips are being pushed directly to the employees. If the tips are being pushed directly to the employees, you could have terms and conditions that the employee or contract labor agrees to, that where they acknowledge that they're responsible for reporting their income, their tips here. The second one is that you're still pushing the tips directly to the employees, but because we are contracting in an enterprise solution for this with the business would have those analytics and the reporting to be able to still do to still handle the withholding and stuff for the employees. So as far as that $600 amount rule, again, like I said, it's just really dependent on the roles and how's that's set up for your organization.
Awesome. Well, those are all the questions we had. Before closing out today, Sarah, if someone wanted to work with Buku, how would they be able to do so? What would you recommend for some of the listeners?
Yes, absolutely. Please reach out to us. Our website is bukuglobal.com, or you can drop us an email at sales@bukuglobal.com.
Awesome. And on the Flowcode side, if anything stood out, was of interest, please visit our website, flowcode.com. We have a plans page where you can see, which plan makes sense for your business based on, the amount of individuals, the budget that you have, really what you're hoping to use with Flowcode. But we have, anything from a free plan to an enterprise plan available at your fingertips. So please reach out with any questions, but thank you all for listening. Thank you, Sarah, for joining. This was fantastic. Really appreciate all the insight. And thank you for being such a great partner.
Great. Thank you, guys.
All right. Take care, everybody.